welcome to our final episode of the Bolts Breakaway in 2024. The regular season is over, and now it is playoff time, baby. As we mentioned last week, David Shealy, he got married, so he's finishing up his honeymoon and cannot be with us today. But no worries, we got DeAndre Lou here, the hockey news, coming into the studio to provide some analysis on the postseason run coming up. We also look back at Kucherov's historic night Wednesday, hitting 100 assists. But let's get started with the lightning round, and we have to start off with the series beginning tomorrow in Sunrise. For the third time in 4 years, the Tampa Bay Lightning will take on their rivals in the Florida Panthers. History has been very kind to the Bolts, who are 8-2 all-time against Florida in the postseason, which obviously means they have yet to lose to the Panthers in the playoffs. When you think back to the 3 games this year between the two Sunshine State squads, Florida probably looks like the better team. They won twice inside AMALIE Arena by a combined 8 scores. And even when the Bolts took down the Cats 5-3 last month, it took 47 saves from Andrei Vasilevskiy. It's a new season, and John Cooper and company know what to expect.
A lot of good hockey players over there. And, they're fun to watch teams. So are they going to push? Of course they are. But I feel like we can push as well.
Nothing better than playing our in-state rivals in the first round. It's going to be great for the fans, great for the hockey of Florida to have 2 really good teams going at it. So, no, it's super exciting.
So here's the look at the upcoming playoff schedule. Once we start tomorrow, a game will be played every other day unless there is a Game 7. At that point, the 2 squads will get a couple of days off before suiting up for Game 7 on May 4th in Sunrise. David isn't here, but we'll still call this a line change where he gets shuffled out and DeAndre Lou gets thrown right into the set to answer some questions. Diandra is a reporter for the Hockey News and a member of the Pro Hockey Writers Association. Diandra, welcome back. How excited are you for playoff hockey?
I am so excited. It's the greatest time of the year.
It's the greatest time of the year. All right, so let's start off with, for the longest time, we penciled the Bolts playing Boston to begin the playoffs. Then in the last game, everything changed. Do you think playing the Panthers is a better situation for the Bolts, or was Boston the better situation?
Listen, I think, some mixed emotions with that, right? Boston and the Lightning, obviously, they match up really well. It's 2 very skilled teams. I think they have a lot of respect for each other, players, coaches, all the way around. But, I think the way that you can look at it, and this is kind of what Stamkos actually mentioned, but if they were to advance to the second round, they would end up playing Florida, right? So there are no bad teams in the playoffs. So these teams are all going to face each other as they move on through the Stanley Cup playoffs, and it kind of just is what it is, right? And these 2 teams know each other very well. It's going to be a brutal, brutal series.
Injuries have been horrific for the Bolts all season long. We know Mikhail Sergachev is not going to play in this series, but what about Luke Glendening and Tyler Mott, who just got injured towards the end of the season? What's the update status on them?
Yeah, and I'll start with Tyler Mott first, just because I've seen him kind of around practice, and obviously he blocked a shot, and doesn't feel great, but I did see him up and moving. You
can see the Mott injury right here. Not ouchies, big
not
ouchies.
Great. Yeah, no, and he was up and moving, maybe a little bit of a limp, but I would expect him to step in and start. As far as the Glendening injury, that one concerns me just a little bit. Obviously, he's been such a key player with the faceoffs. They really, really need him, and it looks like I didn't like the way that looked. We kind of talked about this earlier, but when you look at last year in the series against Toronto, like one of the main things was the faceoff, right? They just could not win the opening faceoff against Toronto in overtime, and it's a key part of the game. They need that.
Yeah. So the Florida Panthers are the reigning Eastern Conference champions. Significant is the fact that in the past 4 years, it's always gone through the state of Florida. But who do you think pulls this off? And I should say first, how do you think the Bolts pull off the upset?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for the Lightning is they got to play great defense. And I feel like a broken record. I've been saying this all season, but it's been a struggle for them, right? They're still kind of getting used to a new system and working through it. They finally got it down, and they've been playing really well, playing in sync, and that is going to be the key for them. And then also, Florida loves to bait. You know what I mean? So I think that for the Lightning, it's going to be don't take the bait. We don't need any penalties, and just play your game. Play your game.
You never know with a Tkachuk on the other side what's going to happen, and we have seen a lot of chippiness between these 2 teams. I imagine there will be some of that again in this series. Who do you have?
And I've said this from the beginning, and I'm sticking with my pick. I got the Bolts in 7.
7. Okay, and let it be known it's 100% going down to 7 because I get married on May 4th as well. So, of course, that's going to happen to me. Who do you think wins the Stanley Cup? What do you think that final is going to look like?
I am watching Colorado. I just think they're still such championship caliber team. And they've, we look at Nathan McKinnon, they've just, Cale Makar, they've had a great season. So I see the Avalanche going all the way. They had a little bit of a break last year too, right? It's hard to win back-to-back Stanley Cups, and we know that here in Tampa.
Yep.
And I picked the Lightning from the beginning. I think that the Lightning, they have a lot of pedigree. I'm watching the leaders on this team really step up and get into playoff mode. I picked them from the beginning to go all the way. I think this will probably be like the toughest series of the playoffs. They got to get through this round, but if they can keep their game in sync, I got them at the end against Colorado.
Well, you heard it right here from DeAndra Lou. We're going to be partying like it's 2022, hopefully just with a different ending.
Center point Radish. Right circle Kucherov in front point. Score! There it is! 100 assists! Nikita Kucherov! There it is. The 5th player in NHL history with 100 assists in a single season. He's got a big smile on his face, as he should.
The great Dave Mishkin and Phil Esposito on the call for a moment. We will not forget in hockey history. Let me quickly go through some season and review stuff before circling back to Kucherov. 5 Lightning players totaled more than 70 points this season. That's Brandon Hagel, Victor Hedman, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, and of course, Nikita Kucherov. Shout out to Steven Stamkos for reaching at least 40 goals in a season for the 7th time in his career. Only 10 NHL players have ever tallied more 40-goal seasons than that. The captain continues to build upon his Hall of Fame resume. I want to also mention Anthony Cirelli and Nick Paul. Both had career highs in goals and points. Nick Paul actually obliterated his previous numbers. Tony, 45 points. Nice job from him, especially with the two-way play that he provides. And then Nick Paul having 46 points, benefiting from time on the PP. Also, Paul, Hagel, Darren Radish were the only Bolts to suit up in all 82 games of the season. But now let's talk about the Art Ross winning for the 2nd time. Nikita Kucherov here. And I'll just leave this up here because you don't need to look at me. Look at the list that he joins here after grabbing 100 assists in the final game against Toronto to become the 5th player in NHL history to reach the century mark, joining Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Bobby Orr, and Connor McDavid. The scene inside AMALIE Arena was electric. You saw the relief on Kuch's face when Braden Point delivered the historic goal. John Cooper even shared a moment with his star player on the bench, as well as Mikhail Sergachev, who came running out from the locker room. There will be a heated debate on who should win the MVP, with Kucherov delivering his final resume builder in grand fashion. He's not a man of many words, but he did talk about the accomplishment after the game.
My teammates and the coaching staff putting me in the position to have success, and fortunate to be with the great players, to play with the great players, and it's a good moment.
As for the final game against Toronto, the Bolts entered this contest down a player due to resting guys and Victor Hedman getting sick, and it didn't matter. They jumped all over Toronto, who could not get Austin Matthews his 70th goal of the season. Before the game, they lost 4 of 5, so winning that contest in convincing fashion was the positive energy they needed. But I want to circle back to Kucherov because he has quite the case for league MVP. Besides winning the Art Ross Trophy and tallying 100 helpers, like I've mentioned already, he accounted for 50% of his team's scoring, has 54 more points than the next highest scorer on his team, Braden Point. He also averaged more than 2 points per game against the best teams in the league. Factor in his robust 75 points on the road and his 23 3-point games. To me, it is clear Nikita Kucherov was the best player this season. He absolutely carried this Bolts team to the playoffs while fending off injuries all year long. The only issue is, you'll hear national pundits say, it's Nathan MacKinnon's time. And there's really no way we can rationally argue against that narrative if that's the way they want to vote. If Kuch does not win the MVP, it's clear to me it's more subjective than objective, because we can splice the numbers a million different ways, but Kuch is going to outshine MacKinnon more than the other way around if we go that route. We'll see what happens, as votes have to be made before the playoffs. All right, let's send this puppy home with our 3 stars of the week. At number 3, Jake Ottinger with the paddle save of his life. This is probably more luck than skill, but it's still incredible to see, especially given how nonchalant he is about getting beat on that pass. Just there we go. The Dallas Stars are in the top seed in the Western Conference and get the lucky task of taking on Vegas, the defending champs, in the first round. There was a crazier save in the Frozen Four, which is where we go for our second star. Congrats to David, Carl, and Denver for winning another NCAA championship. It's the program's 10th title, which is number 1 in the country, but second under Carl, who, if you remember, is a former Tampa Bay Lightning selection. McCade Webster, the captain of the team, is also a Bolts selection, so there's some connective tissue there. At number 1, shout out to all our friends in the desert. This has been a really tough month for them, learning their franchise will be moving to Salt Lake City. The Coyotes played one last game inside AMALIE Arena in front of a cozy, packed crowd there, beating the Oilers 5-2. There is hope an NHL team will return to Arizona at some point in the near future. For now, though, all operations, including their players, will move to Utah next season. Checking out our Bolts picks records. David could not make up any ground on me, so just like on the Blitz, I show him who is boss, taking him down with our weekly selections by 1. It's sad he can't be here for me to gloat some more, but I'll get him back when he returns to the office next week. As for my prediction, I'm going to be honest, I do not feel great about this playoff series, but I cannot pick against the boys. So I'm going to say Tampa Bay wins this series in 6 because I got my winning in 7 games, and I'm not letting them go 7. So that can't happen, all right? I'll say the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup, though. So those are my 2 predictions. Thank you so much for joining us on another season of the Bolts Breakaway. Thank you for Diandra, who came in today. Thank you to David for helping me out this entire season. Thank you for the Bolts for help coordinating interviews and such. And thank you, the viewer, for watching. Enjoy some postseason puck today because tomorrow is when it really counts for us. I'm Evan Closky saying see you in the fall with the Blitz, with the Bucks. More Bright Side coming up after the break.